The car door closed with a soft, solid sound, a seal against the outside world. The noise of the soccer field, the shouts, the whistles, the thud of the ball was gone, replaced by a quiet so deep I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. The air inside was cool. It smelled of old leather and something else, clean, like pages in a new book or rain on dry earth. I let my bag fall to the footwell with a thump. Long day? His voice was low. Not deep, but steady. A voice that didn't have to try to be heard. I looked over. William, my dad's friend. He had one hand on the wheel, the other resting easy on the gear shift. He was looking at me, but not staring. His eyes were the kind of calm that makes you want to tell the truth. "Yeah," I said, my own voice rough from yelling on the field. I pulled at the neck of my jersey, suddenly aware of the sweat drying on my skin. We had a scrimmage. I think I might have rolled my ankle a little. I tried to sound like it was nothing, but the moment I said it, the pain flared, a hot, bright spark. I couldn't stop the sharp intake of breath. His glance dropped to my foot, then back to the road ahead as he pulled away from the curb. "Let's take it easy then. No rush." He didn't say anything else. He just drove. And in that silence, something in my chest, something tight I'd been carrying all day, began to unclench. The world outside the window was a blur of softening light. Lawns, houses, trees, all melted into streaks of green and gold. Inside, it was still. The only sound was the gentle hum of the engine, a perfect, quiet rhythm. We talked about small things first. The game. A tough teacher. The funny way the coach yelled. Normal stuff. But the way he listened, it wasn't like other people. He didn't just wait for his turn to speak. He heard the spaces between my words. Then he asked a question. Simple. But it landed in the quiet of the car like a stone in a still pond. "What's something you want, just for you? Not for your team, not for your parents, not for your grades. Something that's yours alone?" I felt my mouth go dry. I stared at my hands in my lap, at the dirt under my nails, the little scrape on my knuckle. People didn't ask things like that. They asked what position you played, what grade you got, what college you wanted. They didn't ask about the quiet wants. The words came out before I could catch them. They were small, barely a whisper. "I want to see things." "What kind of things?" "Real things," I said, the whisper growing stronger. "Not from a bus tour, not from a phone screen. I want to stand somewhere. Somewhere so quiet and so big that the only thing I can hear is my own breath. I want to feel small, on purpose." I braced myself for a laugh. Or a pat answer. "That's nice, dear. You're so young. You have plenty of time." He was quiet for a long time. So long I thought maybe I'd said something wrong. Then he spoke, his eyes never leaving the road. "That's not a small thing. That's a brave thing to want. To choose to feel small, that means you're not afraid to see how vast everything else is, how vast you could be." Something warm and liquid flooded my chest. My eyes stung. I turned my face to the window, pretending to watch a group of kids on bicycles. No one had ever called a feeling of mine brave before. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full. Full of the truth I'd just spoken, and the way he'd held it, carefully, like it was something precious. I noticed the dust then, tiny specks dancing in a sunbeam that cut across the dashboard. I noticed the gentle wear on the steering wheel, the faint scent of his soap. I noticed the quiet strength in his hands. He spoke again, his voice so soft it was almost part of the engine's hum. "Barbara, you spend so much of your life listening to the noise, the coaches, the teachers, the friends, the crowd in your own head. It's so loud you can forget your own voice is even in there, but it is. And it's the only one that gets to say who you are." I couldn't speak. A lump, hard and hot, was lodged in my throat. I just nodded, staring straight ahead, feeling his words sink into me, layer by layer, warming places inside me I didn't know were cold. We were on my street now. The familiar houses, the big oak tree on the corner, it was all the same. But I wasn't. He pulled into my driveway. The car settled into stillness. I didn't move. "Thank you," I finally managed. The words felt too small for what was happening inside me. "For the ride, and for—" He smiled. It wasn't a big smile. It was a quiet curve of his lips that reached his eyes. "Anytime. Remember what you told me. Remember the quiet places." I grabbed my bag and got out. The evening air was cool on my skin. As I walked to the front door, I heard his car pull away, the sound fading until it was just the chirp of crickets and the beat of my own, suddenly louder, heart. I stood on the porch, key in hand, but I didn't go in. I looked up at the first stars pricking through the deep blue. Vast, I thought. The world was vast, and for the first time that thought didn't scare me. It felt like a promise. The memory of that ride didn't fade, it got brighter. It sat in my chest for the rest of the week, a small warm coal. Walking to school, I didn't just hear the traffic, I heard the rhythm in it. I saw the way the morning light hit the dew on the grass, turning each blade into a tiny, trembling sword of light. In class, when the anxiety would start to creep in, did I study enough? What if I'm called on? I'd hear his voice in my head. The only voice that gets to say who you are. I'd take a breath. The noise would settle. By the time practice ended the next week, a strange feeling had replaced my usual tiredness. It was an ache, but not in my muscles. It was a pull in my chest, toward the parking lot. A hope, and there he was. Not a coincidence. I knew it in my bones. He was there, leaning against the same car, a faint smile on his face as he watched me limp out, my ankles still a little tender. "Still standing," he said, pushing the door open for me. "Barely," I said, but I was smiling too. This time, the quiet in the car felt different. It was comfortable, like a shared secret. We'd already broken the surface. Now we were diving deeper. "You seem lighter," he observed after a few blocks. He didn't look at me, just watched the road. "Do I?" "Yeah, it's in your eyes. They're not darting around so much, they're seeing things." How did he notice that? No one noticed that. My parents saw if I was happy or sad, angry or quiet. They didn't see the speed of my eyes. He asked another question then, one that cut through the small talk like a knife through film. "Barbara, do you ever feel like you're performing? Like there's a script for you that everyone else has read, and you're just trying to remember your lines?" The breath left my body. It felt like he'd reached into my mind and pulled out the exact shape of my fear. My throat tightened. I nodded, staring at my hands, which were suddenly twisting in my lap. "All the time," I whispered. "At school, I have to be the good student. On the field, I have to be the tough player. At home, I have to be the responsible one. Even with my friends, I have to be the funny one, the listener. Sometimes I get home and my actual face, feels sore from holding the right expression all day." The confession poured out, ugly and real. I felt naked, exposed. I waited for the dismissal. "Oh, everyone feels that way. You'll grow out of it." But it didn't come. He just let the words hang in the leather-scented air between us, giving them weight, giving them respect. "That," he said softly, "is the heaviest weight in the world, carrying around the you everyone expects. The tragedy isn't just that it's heavy, it's that you start to believe the performance is all there is. You forget the person backstage, the one who's tired, the one who's scared, the one who has dreams that don't fit in the script." A single hot tear escaped. It traced a path down my cheek and fell onto my jersey. I didn't wipe it away. What if— my voice was a rasp. What if the person backstage isn't enough? What if she's just boring or weak? He finally glanced over. His gaze wasn't full of pity, it was full of a fierce, gentle certainty. "The person backstage is the only real thing you have. Everything else is a costume. And let me tell you a secret. The real you The one buried under all those expectations? She's not boring, she's a mystery, even to you. And that's the most beautiful thing there is. A mystery worth solving. We drove past the park. I saw a little girl on a swing, pumping her legs wildly, her head thrown back in pure, wordless joy. No performance there. Just a girl, and the sky, and the feeling of flying. I want to meet her, I said, so quietly I wasn't sure I'd spoken aloud. The girl backstage. She's right here, he said. You just have to be quiet enough to hear her. That was the lesson of the second ride. Be quiet enough to hear her. That night, in my room, I didn't turn on music. I didn't scroll on my phone. I just sat on the edge of my bed, in the dark, and listened. Past the hum of the house, past the distant TV, past the whirlwind of tomorrow's worries. At first there was nothing, just a blank, tired static. But then, beneath it, a feeling, a small, quiet knot of longing. It wasn't for travel or for success. It was simpler. It was for a morning with nothing to do. For the courage to say no without an excuse. For the freedom to be unproductive. To just exist without a purpose anyone else could understand. It wasn't a grand dream. It was a whisper. But it was mine, and for the first time I heard it. William hadn't given me answers. He hadn't given me a map. He had given me a single priceless gift, the silence to hear my own soul speak. And in that silence, I realized the most important journey wasn't to some distant quiet place. It was the journey home, to myself. And the ride had just begun. Rain. It began as a whisper against the windshield, then grew into a steady, insistent drumming. The world outside dissolved into a watercolor painting streaks of street lamp gold and blurred taillight red. Inside the car, we were in a cocoon of warmth and quiet. The third ride. It had become a ritual without a schedule. I never knew for sure if he'd be there. But my feet, heavy with mud and exhaustion, always carried me to that corner of the parking lot with a hope that felt fragile and necessary. And he was always there. This time, I didn't even try for small talk. The rain gave permission for a deeper quiet. I slumped in the seat, the week's weight of physical pressure on my shoulders. A failed test. A harsh word from a friend that still stung. The constant, low-grade buzz of not being enough. He didn't ask, "How was your week?" He simply drove for a few blocks, letting the rhythm of the wipers fill the space. Then, his voice was almost lost in the sound of the storm. The world gets heavy, doesn't it? It wasn't a question. It was an acknowledgement. A statement of shared truth. It undid me. A sob broke from my throat, harsh and sudden. I clapped a hand over my mouth, mortified. I cried in my room, in the shower, but never here, never in front of anyone. "I'm sorry," I choked out, turning my face to the blurry window, my shoulders shaking. "Don't be," he said, his voice calm amidst the weather's chaos. "Rain outside, rain inside. Let it fall." And so I did. I cried for the test, for the friend, for the ache in my ankle, for the exhausting performance of being okay. I cried for the girl backstage who was so tired. The tears were hot and silent, streaming down my face as the city lights smeared past the glass. He didn't hand me a tissue. He didn't pat my shoulder. He just held the space. He let the storm in the car match the storm outside, and in doing so, he made it safe. He made it honorable. When the tears finally slowed, leaving me hollowed out and raw, he spoke again. "You know, we spend so much time building walls against feelings like this. We call it strength. But sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is let the walls fall. To let the weather in? A feeling isn't a weakness. It's a signal. It's your heart telling you what's real." I wiped my face with the sleeve of my jersey, feeling like a child, but also feeling cleaner than I had in months. "It just hurts," I whispered. "I know," he said, "but a clean hurt is better than a buried one. A buried hurt grows shadows. A clean hurt, it can heal." We were driving slower now, as if the car itself was respecting the fragility of the moment. I noticed the way the raindrops clung to his window, each one a tiny trembling world, holding the reflection of a streetlight before it finally let go and streaked away. "What do I do with it?" I asked. "The clean hurt? You sit with it. You don't rush it away. You ask it what it needs. Sometimes it just needs to be seen, to be heard, just like you." I leaned my head back against the seat, closing my eyes. The clean hurt. It was a bruise on my soul, tender to the touch. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid of it. I wasn't trying to hide it or fix it. I was just feeling it. And in that feeling, there was a strange, quiet peace. "Thank you," I said, the words filled with a new meaning. "For what?" "For not trying to make it stop." He nodded, a simple gesture in the dim light. "Some things need to run their course." He pulled up to my house. The rain had softened to a drizzle. The porch light was on, a hazy golden island in the wet dark. I didn't want to leave the capsule of the car. This safe, honest space where tears were allowed and feelings were maps, not enemies. "The storm clears," he said gently, as if reading my hesitation. "It always does, and the air is always cleaner after." I took a deep, shuddering breath. The air did feel cleaner. In my lungs, in my heart. "Okay," I said. I stepped out into the cool, damp night. The rain kissed my face. I didn't run for the door. I stood there for a moment, feeling the clean hurt, feeling the fresh air, feeling the vast, wet sky above me. I was not fixed. I was not suddenly happy. But I was real. And being real, I was beginning to understand, was the only solid ground to stand on. As I walked inside, I didn't feel broken by the storm. I felt washed by it. And I knew, with a certainty that sank deep into my bones, that the next time the clouds gathered inside or out, I wouldn't be so afraid. The ride had taught me how to weather the storm, and in doing so it taught me I was strong enough to survive the rain.